Okay, so welcome everyone to the fourth in the series of MTE partnership webinars that we're presenting this spring. This webinar is on the STRIDES RAC, Research Action Cluster, and will be presented by Lisa Amick and James Martinez. So we're excited to see what they have to say. If you can advance to the next slide, please. Okay.
I don't know how to do that. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Well, it's good we figured that out now. Okay, so we will keep people muted just to keep the noise down. If you want to make a comment, ask a question, or if you have any technical problems, you can indicate that in the chat, which should be to the side. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. You're up.
Okay. Mary, did you want to start by doing the brief overview of the MTEP and I'll get into STRIDES?
Who were you asking, me?
You. Yeah, do you do the brief overview of MTEP?
You're welcome to do that if you wish.
I would love to defer that to you if you don't mind.
All right. So the goals for this webinar will begin just with a very brief overview of the MTE partnership, and we'll learn more about the STRIDES RAC and how you can get involved in the STRIDES RAC, as well as how that connects to the broader work of the MTE partnership. So the MTE partnership, if you can advance, please. The problem that we're facing is basically a lack of well-prepared secondary mathematics teachers. There's a huge shortage, and it's well known that the quality of teacher preparation is very significant in teacher attrition. So it's both a quantity and a quality issue. So the MTE partnership was formed in 2012 by the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities to address this problem. And you can see the freckles across the map. And the MTE partnership is built on partnerships with an APLU institution as the lead, as well as with partnerships with school districts and the involvement of not only teacher educators, but mathematicians and K-12 educators. This webinar is in part in preparation for the 8th annual MTE Partnership Conference, which will be held in June 23 to 25 in St. Louis. The registration for the conference is officially closed, but if you have some interest in attending and have not yet registered, you can contact us. Next slide, please.
I'm trying.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, I think James was going to start here.
Okay, so welcome everybody. James Martinez, University of Tennessee, here as part of the STRIDES, and just really happy to be here with Lisa and everyone else. We, like all the MTEP, like all of MTEP and all the different RACs, focus on network improved community design, where they're really just focused on a single aim. Many of us have component sub-goals, but focus on a single aim, which is to increase the number and quality of mathematics teacher candidates across the country. It's based upon some guiding principles. Each one of the RACs has different guiding principles that keep us focused, and that's outlined in some AMTA standards as well. And we are all really working on plan, do, study, act cycles, mini cycles within larger cycles to make sure we reach our goals. And we're all very well networked, as we are just in this webinar, and to inform each other and to motivate and inform each other to make sure that we get a lot of progress. Okay. Lisa, you're muted.
The problem that STRIDES specifically is addressing is the issue of teacher retention. So 50% of all teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years, and the rates are higher in several subgroups, including those that teach in the STEM fields, such as mathematics, which is what we're focusing on, and then those that teach in high poverty schools. And then 40% of newly hired math or science teachers feel underprepared, and those underprepared teachers are far more likely to teach in schools of poverty or that are very diverse in terms of serving students of color. So STRIDE's overarching, very ambitious goal is to create this sustainable and cohesive system of professional support that supports these early career teachers so that they do not become a statistic and leave the profession within these first 5 years. And this system, we are hopeful, starts all the way from their pre-service years, so when they're still in their college programs, all the way into their first, second, third years of teaching. So this is our driver diagram. Again, our target is that by 2022, we would like for 85% of those that are completing MTEP programs, so those that are involved in our partnership, to begin a third year of employment as a math educator. So I want to point out a couple of things. So while we would love to focus on the first 5 years, we are trying to target those more critical years, which fall between years 1 and 3. Research shows that if you begin your third year of teaching, you're more likely to stay in teaching long-term, as opposed to, just so that would give us a bigger focus. So we are specifically looking at teachers in their first 3 years, hoping to get them to begin that third year, and then hoping that they will stay in the field long-term. And the term mathematics educator, that doesn't necessarily mean a math teacher. They can, they could be a math coach or a curriculum coordinator or something like that. I'm sorry. So looking at some of our primary drivers, we are hoping that if we address some of these primary drivers, that they will support our goal in those teachers beginning their third year.
So as far as active participants in our RAC, we have quite a few. I just want to highlight a few here. Of course, Lisa is our leader there at the University of Kentucky, and the rest of the names appear here from just really a great variety of places across the country, from California all the way to the Eastern Coast, really. Or I think Lisa and I are pretty much as far east as you get here. But there are quite a few folks that have assisted along the way that, we would probably fill up a slide or two with their names. And we hope that many others will join the RAC either informally or can join us in St. Louis this summer. And some of the names here have really participated quite a bit, so we're very thankful for their participation.
And we are one of the newest RACs, and probably, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're the smallest RAC. So we are definitely looking to add more teams to the partnership in general, but specifically to the STRIDES group as well.
So our timeline of work really started in the fall of 2014, and where we were really put together from the beginning, really out of an indication that there was a need to focus on retention. There had been a previous math RAC that had been doing a lot of work on, in terms of hiring, things like that, recruitment. But we sprung out of that, and we initially just tried to see how many people we could get in terms of interest, and we found that there was a lot of interest in Fullerton a few summers ago. And that eventually really motivated us to create a survey to find out what early career secondary mathematics teachers, what their needs were. And that survey went out to all partner institutions, and we got quite a bit of data back. And we were able to do a couple versions of that survey too. So we were able to kind of see some longitudinal data as well as some unique information during the time frames. So when we got the information back, 141 early career secondary math teachers, talked about how they felt in the fall and how they felt in the spring as far as what type of supports they were getting and from whom, and really their interest in different types of supports that they felt would be significant for them. A lot of data analysis after that, and actually another set of surveys, kind of more focused surveys, went out. And then just starting a little over a year ago, we started really focusing on interventions. And we split into basically two areas that we'll talk about, I think, in a future slide here. And those particular areas really focused on what we could do to move the needle in terms of keeping these early career teachers in the field. Now, when I speak of early career teachers, we define that as the first 2 years of service. So we really focus on those teachers, and we're fortunate to get enough support from our partner institutions to get us the data we needed. And now we're working on the interventions, which are a little more local in some ways and hoping to broaden out. And that we'll talk about in another slide.
Yeah, so we are currently finishing up interventions that were piloted this year. We are doing two different subgroups of those, but those are being finished right now. And then our goals for the summer is to look at the data from our pilot year, tweak the models that we've used, and then do the full-scale implementation of interventions come fall 2019. So some of the findings from the surveys that guided the interventions that were developed. So teachers benefited the most, or they had perceived benefit from on-site mentors and colleagues. So while they were using online forums for professional development, they were using administrator feedback, they were using a variety of resources, they felt the most benefit from somebody that was on-site, somebody that they felt was a mentor or a colleague. They also had a desire for more meaningful relationships with their administrators. And so they often reported that the administrator would come in, do an observation, give them more affirmation than anything else. And they are seeking more meaningful relationships where they are getting content, where they are getting, curriculum feedback, pedagogy feedback as something more meaningful than just affirmation. A third finding was that job satisfaction and projected longevity in the field were directly tied to the support that they were receiving. So teachers that felt great deal of support, they had high job satisfaction, which goes along with other, research that's out there. But then again, those teachers that were not feeling supported did not see themselves staying long-term in education. And the last key finding was that teachers wanted more resources. So time, money, support, all those things that are just kind of hard to come by in education. And they specifically mentioned professional learning opportunities, such as the ability to attend conferences. Not only the ability, but the funds and the support to do that. So based on these key survey findings, 2 intervention subgroups were created. So the first one is the one that I am leading, the teacher collaborative groups. So we are working with teachers and their mentors to try to strengthen that professional collaboration. And then the other group is the one that James is leading, and it is targeted support for administrators with first-year teachers. So that partnership there. So going into more detail with the first intervention. So we are working with approximately 15 teachers this year and their mentors, and we are pushing out monthly interventions. And we started back in August. And our August intervention, for example, was encouragement of self-care. So if we can think back to your first year of teaching, think about how much time and effort you spent into your classroom and your students, and you did not probably spend a lot of time taking care of yourself. So we reached out to our first year teachers and their mentors and said, here's how important self-care is. Here are some ways that we encourage you to, put yourself first, and don't forget about yourself in this very crazy, challenging first year. Another example was in September, we pushed out some information regarding setting up their classroom, establishing norms, classroom management, some of those things that are really important to establish early on, or, first year teachers struggle to establish those if they're not established right away. We pushed out the first year teacher curve that's backed by research later in the year, when teachers usually hit the bottom. And I think the bottom of that is called disillusionment. And so just to say that, every first year teacher goes through this. You are in good company. Reach out to your mentor for support, reach out to us for support, and know that, you will be rejuvenated soon. And that, this is the most challenging year that you will face. We also hosted 2 Zoom panels with what we called experts. The first one was teachers that were still relatively new. They were maybe closer to their 5th year teaching, so that they were relatable to the first year teachers that we're working with, but also they'd gotten over that, the first 3-year challenge. And so our first year teachers were able to ask them questions about classroom management, working with their administrator, implementing a curriculum that maybe they didn't really believe in or that they felt was very challenging. And so we did one of those in the fall and one of those in the spring. And then another example of what we've pushed out monthly would be readings, research about pedagogy, about updated standards, about just things that are happening in math education. And we encourage them to sit down with their mentors and read the content and discuss it. So those are some of the pilot things that we're doing this year. We are collecting data through a survey, both after the fall semester, we did a survey, and then at the end of the spring semester, we're getting ready to implement a second round of surveys, just in terms of which monthly interventions they felt most relevant and most useful, and what support they still wish they had. Something that we were not able to address was the desire for conference travel funds and support, but we're hoping with funding, we will be able to do that come the fall. James, you're muted.
Yep, got it. As far as the other portion here with the administrators, our survey data really spoke to how much the teachers did not feel that they were connecting at all with administrators and only saw them briefly during evaluations and other kind of general meetings. So our goal was to create an intervention in which the administrator and early career teacher really did not have to spend a lot of time together to really move the needle in terms of the administrator hopefully feeling that they are supporting the teacher more, and the early career teacher feeling that they're supported by their principal. And so what we did is we found that it was easier to do a local study with one school district and pair up early career teachers, 2 early career teachers, math teachers, and their principal at sites, secondary sites. And we were able to do it's an experimental design where we have a intervention teacher and comparison teacher. And the intervention teacher sits down with their principal for only 5 minutes and watches a video that focuses on discourse in the classroom for mathematics teaching. And then they have a timed 5-minute post-video conversation about what they saw. And we had survey prior to that meeting to get a feeling for the participant feelings about being supported and supporting. And then we're waiting 45 days after that meeting to get to survey them again, so we can do in pre and post. And our hope is that, and really our hypothesis is that even after 45 days, that a 10-minute meeting would really change the way that they felt that the administrators were supporting their teachers and that the teachers were feeling supported by administrators. So that is just about done right now. The principals and intervention teachers had their meetings. The initial surveys were done, and we're just this week now, we're putting out, it's been 45 days, we're putting out the post. Obviously, there's a lot of confounding things that can happen during that time, during the end of the intervention meeting or the collaborative meeting and the post-survey, but we still think it's something worth exploring. And once again, it's a pilot, so we can make some adjustments and go from there toward hopefully a national survey.
So moving forward into the academic year that's coming up, so fall 19 into spring 20, we are hopeful to spend a lot of time at the annual conference looking at the data that we've collected from both of these interventions and just seeing, you know, what's working, what's not working, what can we change, you know, because this was our pilot year of interventions and we did not have funding for this. So we're going to look through the data and find out what was effective and then make changes to implement a much broader scale full implementation in the fall. And then we're hoping to also involve the entire MTEP network. So currently we're doing very local things just based on who's in the STRIDES RAC. But come the fall, we are going to reach out to the MTEP, the broader MTEP community and try to push out these interventions to early career math teachers across the nation so that we have a much broader spectrum. And then our second main goal is to secure some kind of funding to support our work so that we can give stipends to the early career teachers that are participating, also to the administrators, to have funds for conference travel and registrations, and then also for our time for the researchers that are in MTEP that are doing these interventions, to help compensate for their time and our time as well.
And if I could add, Lisa, as well, one of the things that we found is that to motivate our administrators, especially our administrators, but also our early career teachers to participate in some of our studies and some of our research studies, that having additional funding would really help in terms of incentives. And I think that would go a long way toward getting more participation for our research studies.
Yeah, and just to second that, one of the members of our research team had some leftover gift cards from something else, and so she was able to give her first year teachers that are participating in our intervention it's a $20 gift card. And we're looking at the survey results that we've gotten back. All of her teachers have responded, and the rest of us, you know, some have, some haven't. So even a $20 gift card is motivational for, you know, someone to fill out a survey and to do the work.
Yeah, we had $20 gift cards also that it turned out we had a limited supply, but in that case, because it's such a small sample set of participants, we were able to give them all $20 gift cards. So they're going to be thankful as well. So maybe $20 is the magic number. Yeah.
So there are a lot of ways for anybody who's interested in teacher retention, you know, this national issue of us not having enough secondary math teachers, and those that we do have leaving the field, and those not feeling prepared to teach secondary mathematics. So if you're interested in that issue, we would love to get you involved in our work. And like we've already stated, we're spending the summer analyzing the data from our pilot year. So if that interests you, we'd love to have you help with that. We're going to be sorting through a lot of both qualitative and quantitative data, at least from my intervention. James, I assume yours would be similar. So we would take anybody's expertise that has experience or desire to sort through some data and then help us tweak the interventions for the fall. So there is a great opportunity to get involved right now, because you could have your hand in designing these interventions that will directly impact early career teachers and essentially impact their longevity in the field is what we're hoping to target.
And
if you get excited about grant writing, we would love to help secure funding for these interventions that we're putting into place. We have a couple grants that have been submitted for our work, and we're waiting to hear back. But we're also looking to, continue to find funding sources that are available. MTEP in general is also, recruiting teams to join. So thinking back to that map that we showed earlier on, if you are interested in a team that includes a mathematician or a math educator or somebody in the K-12 school district, if you think you can create a team to join MTEP, we encourage you to do that. And then I'm the RAC leader for STRIDES, so you can always reach out to me personally if you have questions or if you have ideas on how you could be involved. Questions about STRIDES, about our work?
So I find it really interesting, kind of the approach you're taking, which is to do things that are pretty lightweight and achievable supports rather than, going all in on something that would be, an hour a week or something, which is unattainable. Do you have a sense of, just informally, what the response has been to those activities?
Are you talking about mine or James's or both?
Yes, either or both, because it just seems like this is an interesting model, because a lot of times we tend to go for the grand designs, where people have to sign their life away. And so I think it's really kind of this lightweight engagement is an interesting approach.
Yeah, so so a lot of that stemmed from just, not having funding. And so we had to think how we can do this without that. But secondly, because we are all across the nation. So how can we implement something that all of us can do with our early career teachers where we're not all in the same place? So we can't get them all together to attend a certain conference or to lead a, professional workshop or something like that. So we were trying to think of things that we could just push out via email and then have them sit down and do these targeted discussions on. And then, it was also important for us to be able to replicate this to the larger MTEP partnership, but then also even beyond that. So if this becomes some kind of a national model, we wanted it to be able to be implemented at a variety of sites, levels, districts, things like that. So that was definitely intentional. And we also kept in mind that first year teachers have a lot going on and they don't need something else on their plate. And so if they could just do something for 1 hour a month where they felt supported, that was kind of our goal. So I don't know, James, do you want to add something to that before we talk about like numbers? I know right now we have in our subgroup, we have about 15 teachers participating. And I would say for the Zoom sessions, we had about 7 to 8 the first Zoom session, and then I think only 5 the second Zoom session out of the 15. But those were just 2 interventions out of the 9 that we've done. So when we pushed out the readings for them to do and encouraged them to sit down with their mentor, I don't know for sure how many did that, but when they filled out the survey, they talked about which thing was most impactful, and several of them mentioned that first year teacher curve. So just having seen that and looking at it and talking about that with their mentor was meaningful for them. So that makes me think that more of them were doing the readings that we pushed out as opposed to the Zoom that was a specific 1 hour that had to be there at that time. And it was a little less flexible.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we had similar kind of indications in the administration RAC in terms of how busy the teachers were, and also especially the administrators. Just getting administrators, I think, because they're the key component. We had a number of schools where the teachers were ready to go, but the administrator didn't have enough time, so they dropped the entire school out of the study because if you didn't have the administrator participating in the intervention, then the whole plan goes away for that particular school, which was disappointing to some of those teachers, but it's what happens. The other thing Lisa mentioned there was replication, and we have learned quite a bit about the challenge of replicating these protocols for the intervention that we're going to talk a lot about in the summer, because it did require quite a bit of time and energy on my part to really follow up on making sure everything was working really well with the study for the participants that we had. And for us to go national on that, or try to get a broader audience, we're going to need to make this more automated, the whole program a little more automated. And I think that's possible. It's just going to require a little bit of time and effort to do that, so that when we send it out nationally, it won't require so much time from myself and others in the administration sub-RAC to kind of follow up and make sure things are running smoothly. So, but yeah, starting small, kind of proof of concepts, that was what we were thinking the whole way.
So there's a question in the chat that says, what kind of issues or concerns seem to arise among novice teachers during those sessions? So a lot of them are things that you would expect. So classroom management, work-life balance is something that we did not have an intervention designed around that for this year, but that's something that we definitely want to work on next year, was just helping these first-year teachers figure out how to create a work-life balance that works during that first year. But some things are very personal in terms of, I am teaching a curriculum out of a curriculum that I do not believe in. It's very traditional, it's skill drill, that's not how I want to teach, but what do I do when that's our district's curriculum and I don't feel like as a first-year teacher I can scrap that and have, any kind of flexibility. So we just do some general things as just in terms of being an advocate for yourself, being an advocate for best practice teaching strategies, just opening up those discussions. We in the Zoom session, we also got into a conversation about how your first year or your first job is not always your forever job. And I think that was kind of powerful for some of the attendees to hear that they took their first teaching job thinking, this is it, this is where I'm going to be, this is where I'm going to spend my career. But hearing from these handful of other teachers that attended, that we had asked to attend, that were in their 3 to 10th year teaching, saying, yeah, my first couple years I taught here, I learned a lot about myself and what I wanted out of my career here. But then I switched to this school, which was aligned with my philosophy of teaching, and they teach out of a curriculum that I believe in. So just having those conversations that you might not expect, I think it has been really impactful on these teachers, just to have a place and a forum, a safe place to do that.
Another good question here in terms of preparation, and this would be also true for induction. I know probably, Lisa, you get a little bit more into the folks that are being, during their preparation years or maybe during the induction. And we get a little bit of that bridge in the induction phase for the first-year teacher, or maybe sometimes first and second-year teacher, depending on what induction program the districts have. But those vary widely. I mean, from zero induction altogether, as most of you know, to those that are fairly substantive. So that's something that I appreciate the comment, David, that we'll kind of look at a little bit more in the summer. I think it's worth talking about a little bit more in terms of really investigating ways during the preparation programs for something that has long-lasting effects on retention, as well as some of the induction programs and how effective they are. I guess we kind of funneled ourselves a little in terms of getting really practical toward these interventions, and it's always good to step back and really talk about the broader issue as well.
So to follow up a little bit more on David's question, so currently this year, James and I, with the interventions that we're doing, we're working with first-year teachers only, just as our pilot. We're going to open that up more broadly in the fall to, a more encompassing definition of early career teacher. But for this year only, we did first-year teachers. And I don't think we've done a lot looking at, how they felt in their preparation versus their teacher satisfaction. I know that we talked about with James and the administrator interventions, we talked a little bit about how could we get into those administrator preparation courses. So like if I'm a teacher and I want to become an administrator, I have to go get a certificate for that. How can we put some kind of a module or an assignment or a reading in there so that those future administrators are trained specifically on how to support early career teachers, not just how to support teachers, but early career teachers, and then also math teachers. So a lot of times they're not aware of best practice teaching strategies in math. And as opposed to working with them after they are in a principal position, could we work with them while they're going through their coursework? And so that's a university tie that we've talked about that we've not done anything with yet. And then again, like your question says, I don't think we've looked at the correlation between where they were trained as teachers, or how they feel like their preparation was in comparison to their job satisfaction later. So those are definitely ideas that we can that we would love to explore.
And the administrator preparation program, the 3 Ps, principal preparation program. I know that Journal for Cases of Educational Leadership is going to publish a case study that I just recently wrote that really goes exactly to this early career teacher support. So that'll be published, I think, in the next 2 months or so, 2 or 3 months. So that's something we could use, as well as anything else. Anybody else has other recommendations about good cases that can be used in principal preparation programs for those early career administrators. So they're very aware of not the old style of, if you don't meet the bar, you don't get over a bar. If you're not an A type teacher, cut you loose. Don't keep them tenured, don't tenure those that are B or below, as opposed to a kind of growth mindset. So we've talked a lot about quite a few of these concepts, but we're so focused, I think, right now on the interventions that it's really going to be worthwhile for us to broaden out this summer. So I appreciate the comment.
There's another question that says, how did you recruit the teachers that are involved in our interventions? So for our interventions, they came directly from our program. So there's about 5 to 6 of us working on the teacher mentor collaboration side. And so we all reached out to our recent graduates and asked them if they were interested in participating. And that's where our 12 teachers came from.
And on our side, we just recruited from a university close to one of our campuses, in that it was simpler for the IRB process. For us to get approval for IRB, that's another hurdle that we're really going to have to look at this summer, is how we are able to perform an intervention across many university systems, and what that means in terms of IRB. It was easier for us to do the IRB at one of our universities and then use that toward the local school district near our university, so that everything was in line. Something we really have to figure out.
Yeah, and ideally we would do the same thing for come the fall. We reach out to all the MTEP constituents and say, could you reach out to your first year teachers and see if they're interested in this, professional development support opportunity? And we would recruit, similarly, but hopefully get a lot more involvement.
Mm-hmm. And that's not to say, by the way, that the partnerships that we currently have in MTEP are in any way kind of nationally representative to the degree that, it really does represent a lot like national studies that come out of NCES, where everything is very balanced in sort of gender and race, SES, things like that. So we'll have to kind of look at that as well.
So there's another question that says, do faculty at the universities need to manage their students' involvement, or is that centralized? So at least for us, it's centralized with our research team. So we create, well, that's not true. No, I guess they are managed by us. So we create a email in a Google Doc that we want to send out to all of the teachers involved in this intervention, but then each of us individually send it to the teachers that we know and that we recruited into this. We talked about that in terms of, should one of us be the point person that pushes this out? And we decided against that, just because a more personal email from somebody that they know, we felt like would get more involvement than me sending out the email to 12 people, but only 3 of them are former students of mine that know who I am. So we each push out the intervention personally to our students each month, but it definitely could be centralized, but I think that might impact our participation.
Mm-hmm. And on our side, it was just, once again, the relationship between the university and the local school district. So many in fact, all the teachers that are and all the teachers and principals are really not aligned to MTEP at all, so they would be completely objective to really our program as a whole. I think the only way they may know about that is just in the description and informed consent about, you know, how we're organized, but other than that, no.
Something else that we haven't done that I don't know if it would be useful or not, but we've talked about it, is trying to build collaboration between the first year teachers that are involved in this pilot. So we haven't really given them an opportunity to bond as a group and use each other, you know, as a sounding board, or to, you know, to reach out for advice. Other than the Zoom sessions where they all come together, but also there's other more veteran teachers to ask questions with. We haven't done anything with just the first year teachers and getting them to get to know each other. And, you know, where are you teaching? What are you teaching out of? What are your current struggles? And just trying to get some kind of collaboration and partnership there. So that's something that I want to specifically ask about in the end of the year survey, to see if they wish that is that a useful thing or not. And so I don't know, we'll see where that goes.
And a lot of our surveys were surprising in some ways, not surprising in that they felt they needed connection, whatever that connection would be, with colleagues that were in the math. Mostly that we found the results of the survey saying that they want to call to really more connections with colleagues in mathematics teaching at their level, or with administrators or what have you. But we also found that some of what we consider to be, when we initially put out the surveys to early on, that we put a lot of information there about online groups, Twitter, chats, different type of thing. And we were surprised, maybe it was just 141 participants in the survey, but we were very surprised that many were not that interested in online support from organizations or you know, already pre-established platforms. So in terms of the administrator one, we wanted it to be a very personal connection, and that would be true for the mentoring on the other side. Really personal connections at their sites. So really focusing on those. But, you know, we may want to revisit that a little bit. I know as an early career teacher myself, this was before, of course, all the social media platforms and things that are available today. It would have been kind of nice to be able to just type in, you know, I'm having this issue with the student, and be somewhat anonymous and really get some good feedback from folks that, you know, this is well past, you know, my teacher preparation. But I think those are good things to think about as well.
Yeah, and there's great platforms available for that right now. I mean, we could easily make a Facebook group or create something on Slack to where we put in first-year teachers, you know, across the nation, and they can ask questions or post comments. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to those survey results, they currently were not using online things. So I don't know if that would be useful or not.
Yeah, Slack sounds very interesting. I know, you know, I use that quite a bit in something else that I'm involved in outside of campus, and it seems to be very, and, you know, GroupMe, Slack, all these different things that really get people connected on a particular issue or a particular need. So it's good to hear that. Thank you, Margaret, for stating that. Any other questions, folks?
Would you like for me to advance on?
I think we're ready. Yep. Okay, I guess I'll do this one. So just a reminder that the webinar series is continuing. The next webinar is Tuesday of next week with the PR Squared group, and an announcement will be forthcoming for that. So please participate. We're also recording and uploading them. So if you think someone else might benefit from seeing this or any of the other webinars, you can direct them to the recordings. And with that, we will thank our presenters, James and Lisa. Very nice job, very interesting. And we look forward to your continued participation with the webinars, and hope to see you in St. Louis. So thanks, everyone. Take a bow, James and Lisa, and thanks.
I will say, before we leave, we do have a large group coming to St. Louis in the summer. And so if you are interested in working with STRIDES, James and I are both going to be there, along with pretty much everybody on that list that's been active in STRIDES thus far. So if anybody's interested, that's a great place to come and join and start, because, I mean, a lot of people are going to be there, and we have a lot of work to get done.
Yes, any and all. Look forward to seeing you there. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.